Welcome to our module on credentials. Our goal is to provide you a baseline understanding of the important access role that they play for workers internationally. We will also cover some basic considerations beyond initial entry into a country and/or market. Credentials essentially provide a third-party standard of qualification to judge whether an individual or organization is suitable for something. In years past, the term credential was used more often by ambassadors or on behalf of one government to another. This was because in most communities people were born, lived, and died within a 5 to 20 mile radius. It was simple enough to determine whether someone was fit for a job based on one's direct experience with an individual, or, in the case of new individuals, to inherit a relational reputation of the mentor, as is in a master-apprentice type of relationship. However, as people began moving farther afield geographically, it became necessary to establish standards that could more broadly be applied to people doing work of a certain type. Early forms included guilds based in major metropolitan centers and universities with local and then international reputations. In today's global market, credentials play a critical role in establishing a baseline suitableness for candidates competing for jobs in geographically dispersed environments. We'll cover two main types of credentials, academic and occupational or professional. With regard to academic credentials, many of you will be familiar with the basic degrees, but it should be noted that their usefulness is often determined by whether an individual is seeking a career in academia and/or their desire to specialize. A master's degree is often sufficient for those in occupational or professional roles, but a PhD is preferred in academic and/or consulting environments. Another component of academic credentials includes peer-reviewed published articles and research. It can often be quite easy to determine both the quality of peer review as well as how often an individual is cited, which lends itself well to determining whether or not a person is suitable for a specific task or has achieved subject mastery. Moving on to occupational or professional credentials, there are a number of broad categories to consider. Professional licenses are generally the most transferable internationally. However, it is important to consider how broadly accepted a given license is both throughout the world as well as in the target community. As an example, TESOL educators will likely want to consider a CELTA certificate due to its widespread acceptance internationally. Memberships in professional associations is another way to enter into a new country and can provide key relational reputation by creating a multinational affinity group that meets and dialogues on current standards and developments in a particular field. Over time, this can result in friendships and/or partnerships that ease later transition. I personally strongly recommend participating in the equivalent of apprenticeships in a target country after basic language programs have been achieved. This provides an important environment where soft skills can be acquired. Depending on the work required and the experience of the individual, it may also be useful to complete an apprenticeship in the home country. But this is more for hard skill acquisition and will not often be recognized in the new country. This is especially true if there are no suitable companies and/or mentors that exist in the new country. I will not go into trade certificates in any depth, but they can be helpful if part of the value add is interfacing with industries and institutions in the home country. Finally, building up work experience over time is certainly preferred. There is little that can compare to having over 10,000 professional hours in any role. But this takes time and is sometimes not possible in fast-paced roles that experience significant turnover. Now that we've discussed some of the basics surrounding credentials, I'll move on to some broad considerations that can help you both enter more quickly and then develop your base to ensure you are relevant moving into the future. The first consideration involves a basic understanding of qualifiers and winners when it comes to successfully transitioning overseas. This key aspect of credentials is difficult because it is highly impacted by how you value different competencies. As an example, upon transitioning overseas, many individuals do not correctly value the time invested in learning the language and culture of the new people group. Interestingly, most sending organizations do value this and will often require at least 2 years of language training. Perhaps more interestingly, though, Many of these organizations do not require that their members be certified to an international or even a national standard of language proficiency. However, a professional organization will certainly look at which band of language proficiency was achieved, as this is one of the most basic indicators of later success. To each of these three groups, the qualifying standard of consideration is different. It is critical that you correctly determine who will be judging your credentials, not only in language but in many other areas as well. Moving beyond simple qualifiers, it is also important to determine which areas you will want to specialize in that can offer a distinctive service or good that will be valued in the new community. This differentiates you from not only other nationals but from other expats. Depending on the competitiveness and the restrictiveness of your community, this will rapidly become a key skill for you to master and then to communicate within your new community.